Unfortunately, what used to be a rare occurrence, active shooter incidents are becoming increasingly common in today's world. With the increasing threat, it's important to understand your options and the proper steps to take to improve your chances of survival. In this video, we'll teach you how to make the appropriate decisions using the information available to you based on your environment and your proximity to the shooter. We'll also teach you how to use the tools at your disposal to possibly save your life and the lives of those around you. It's important to remember that nothing taught in this video will guarantee your survival. But with proper planning, preparation, and practice, you can substantially increase your odds. We've all heard the headlines. Sandy Hook, Las Vegas, Columbine. By now we all know what takes place during an active shooter incident. A disgruntled or deranged individual decides to open fire on a group of innocent people. Schools, shopping malls, concert venues, it can happen just about anywhere. While it may seem like each incident is just a repeat of the last, it's important to understand that no two events are exactly the same. With that said, it's equally important to understand that each individual response can and should vary depending upon the scenario. If our response should change based upon the scenario, how do we determine the proper course of action? We're going to do it by utilizing a decision-making process called an OODA Loop. OODA Loop stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, and Act. We're going to use the OODA Loop to help us determine which one of 4 courses of action to take. The courses of action will be evading, hiding, barricading, or fighting. The decisions you make will depend largely upon your environment, your proximity to the shooter, and your individual abilities. Let's talk about the first O in the loop, observe. Observation is important because fractions of a second count in these situations. And it's the only point in the loop where we can get ahead of the shooter and be proactive instead of reactive. Just as it sounds, this is the point where you observe your environment. While observing, you should be identifying escape routes, possible cover and concealment, as well as potential threats and danger areas. Observation is something that can and should be done in our day-to-day lives, even in the absence of a threat. The more familiar we are with our environment in the absence of a threat, the quicker we will be able to orient ourselves in the presence of a threat. The second O in the loop stands for Orient. This is where you assess possible responses to the threat in your environment. Based upon the actions of a shooter, you will need to decide whether you will evade, barricade, hide, or fight. This stage of the OODA Loop requires you to ask yourself a few questions, like where am I in relationship to the shooter? For example, if the shooter is too close, your only option may be to fight. The second question might be, what options are available for cover and concealment? And also, what are my possible escape routes? As you can see, the Orient phase of the OODA Loop requires that you assess the situation around you, exploring possible options. The next step of the OODA Loop process, and one that seems almost instinctive, it happens so quickly, is to decide upon the best course of action. Once you've measured your options, you will select one of them and commit fully. The final step of the OODA Loop process is to take action. You will either evade, barricade, hide, or fight. Half measures and hesitation can be lethal at this point of the phase in the OODA Loop. Remember that the OODA Loop is an ongoing process. Once you've decided upon a course of action, you may be interrupted, blocked, or determine that your course of action is no longer viable. Just remember to always be observing, orienting, deciding, and acting. Now that you have a basic understanding of the OODA Loop decision-making process, you'll next need to learn about the possible courses of action. We'll deal with these in our next video segment.